What's going on, folks? Welcome back to the Multi-Faceted channel, the home for breakthroughs, the haven for all that is avant-garde and crazy unusual. And without further ado, today's video is going to be a whole different level of originalities. Crazy philosophy as of today, folks. Today's fourth episode, we got also a crazy as hell ideas of mine concerning being an amateur. And what that could mean to a philosophical approach. Also the same philosophical concerns for the idea of leadership and its approach to philosophical orientation. So without further ado, folks, here's the title. Leadership and Dilettantism in Philosophy Part 1. Okay then, the very first paragraph that you see here is precisely the introduction, which I'll go ahead and explain since it's too long an article to read. We're not going to go through it, we'll just talk about it. And so growing up with a certain mindset that comes with the standpoint of presenting one's aspects of living in general into life, as that standpoint grows along and represents itself in a portrayal of that person's sense of leadership, and most importantly their sense of dilettantism. And this is just a noun plus suffix ism for the noun dilettante, or in other words, an amateur. And as always, the keywords in the description below are your guide to this video and many other videos as well. So, being an amateur and a leader in the sense of philosophy comes this thing with a huge package of convictions, mostly personal. Deeds, actions, sacrifices, comprehension of the world surrounding us, and of course, the very initiations of one's mindset, or early young age mindset, sort of, to make it clear. Philosophy in this respect, or at least to me, it evinces or shows that this subject matter or even case study, it can be called that. That is to say, philosophy illustrates that this thing is super seriously and socially related, as one's challenge could and will face problems and even trials and tribulations if hardships get that far, you know? As every social standpoint comes with its own and special pack of obstacles, and I personally call it a quagmire. That is the ultimate explanation for what is known as a problem. And if you jump for further details or minutiae of what philosophy has to see through all of this, you'll see that philosophy, and I directly quote from here, philosophy in its duty of analyzing such a conviction alongside boundaries and relevant touchstones of examining each failure, complexity of personalities, handlings over any situation whatsoever, an advancing point that one's psychological status has happened to referentially allude to the take of the designated issue. And so a little expounding here from me, and it's that philosophy tackles this sense of leadership and dilettantism, or being an amateur, like I said before. It tackles it through people's convictions of the very problems and obstacles which they face in life, and which that latter shape their characters into approaching such universally modern themes of leading the entrepreneurial spirit one can possibly have. Everyone has it, so it's universal. Those dreams also that have now come to accompany one's sense of leadership, as you can see here, folks. And once again, the way philosophy sees it, it's a mindset-based standpoint, viewers. Mindsets-based-standpoint. As in, whatever you have to conquer the world that's before you is just what you had growing up with. That's your motor, that the labels challenges to be whatever you perceive them and get soluble towards them as well. It means you have to find solutions for them. So this disposition, and also what could be the character of the scapegoat one can be throughout trying constantly over and over again to figure out the happenings in life and the ways they are unusual and super bizarre. So here my point of view is quite simple. In breakthroughs, folks, procedures, unstoppable head starts, universal ideas, entrepreneurial spirit, early young age mindset, or better still, a standpoint. So hell yeah, that's my main concern out of all of this you see here before you. So next paragraph, folks, is what can be called grounds, or simply attitude, behavior, sort of, to make it clear. And as far as the main motor, which is personality, as dreadfully concerned with the case of making grounds, or standing grounds, also perfectly expressed that way. The designated grounds I speak of here is the distinction, or making the major difference between dreams and reality, as most facts known about it while growing up with a certain mindset and its follow-ups of beliefs, as mostly are utopian and whatnot, especially in the sense of a very clean kind of a young standpoint, you know what I mean? The one that kind of dreams big and holds on tight to that, to those dreams, as growing up still cognitively, perceptively, maturely, and even smartly too. There must be severe measurements on account of all of that, after all. And another aspect, which is age, as a very hard fact to confront as well, since it comes restrained too with its mechanism of clarifying one's reasoning throughout aging, of course. And that reasoning I speak of now is a dead end itself, as aging proves itself to be so realistic, eye-opening, yet overall, if you're a dreamer, you're a successful person, and thus you are doomed to be a leadership, see? And a dilettante of tons to do and accomplish in life. What an awesome lockdown. Also, the psychological aspect in this respect that states this thing, the psychological state of mind is requisitely responsible for the critical urge of pushing through everything, which is in a universal favor. It keeps on working super damn hard despite aging, and that's just a God-given feature humanity should be thankful for, just grandiloquently and every single day. You see, mankind is doomed to live up to attempting be that disposition buried in them. And as mission in life, whatever it is to be concerned with some aspects like maturity, responsibility, gratitude. These aspects kind of empty one's portion out of life. Sort of to say, whereas such a point meets up eventually with objectivity in life. And that is just a darnest situation. As to lots of whys, life gets to be super dull too, you know. And as from then on, or that very newly shaped mindset on, the sense of contemplation gets to escalate to the worse and more engines of you work extra hard, only to live up to the designated subject matter you were born with, or the mindset you were born with, and that is being a leader in your field, or still a dilettante, sort of an amateur in your big journey of the entrepreneurial spirit you were also born with, the dreams and all that is beautiful in life, folks. At least to think about it, I mean, doesn't it make any sense to you? When your mind addresses these things I've been saying time to time here, it gets to you badly and won't let you live peacefully at all unless you try harder and be a certain dilettante, possibly a polymath, or simply you just have to disembark upon nothingness of reveries unsolved and dreams unrealized. Alrighty folks, another part, since psychology is also herein super prevalent, this universally beautiful aspect is to neutralize people from their very super attached life's issues of achieving something and making it happen. Although sometimes very utopian and chimerical as well. It's all just doable after all if it ever be sacrificial. And on account of the sacrificial limits, folks, here, it is the same for what could turn someone's subjectivity in life, and by subjectivity exactly here, I mean the super joyous beliefs of utopias being conducted to reality. Super harshly too. So that subjectivity in life becomes plain objectivity due to the exhaustion, weariness and wretchedness sometimes caused by life and all of that. And it's all just part of what we do in our lives, you know, and what we share to the world, which is a part of us to give and die for after all. And the question remains, how sacrificial can you be? This is a seriously universal question, since it relates to a lot, and mainly what we said before, those psychological aspects alluding to mainly maturity, responsibility and gratitude. They get to face a new facade with a new mechanism to either fall for compromise and sometimes letting go of one's inbuilt or original and so very attached to young mindset and also standpoint, which gained a God-given message to fulfill in life. So that is the question when facing these senses of dilettantism or being an amateur in life, since learning is still a big odyssey for all of us. That entrepreneurial spirit, those dreams that have now come to accompany one's sense of leadership towards life. It's not an easy thing to deal with, but in this part, which I want to bring up here, it also says modernism has affably related itself to deem or assess professionally one's relevance to the scale of a lifetime achievements. The comprehensiveness of leadership is of boundaries that tells so much about its figures of interactions, blah 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 blah. Modernism ravages each perspective into absolute dedications of commitment, accuracies of scheduled and exhibited samples of the other's paths and experiences in life. As to add, mechanism is truly a powerful weapon that photocopies upon all of us things like experiences and the sense of sorting through or even after those that made it first. Trailblazers. And although there is always a breakthrough within someone's sense of work, it's also a universal fact. It's just kind of a role model for modernism as of today to push us all in the follow-up or in the following of a step or two. It wouldn't hurt and surely would benefit a lot of our efforts towards points like integrity, commitment, and responsibility. I mean, such points and more really do indicate prosperity and success into the philosophy of dilettantism. as that is, as I've always explained it before, being an amateur onto doing something from a young mindset, a standpoint, and thus a God-given disposition to respect and pay homage for. It's all what it's needed to be paid attention to respect and pay homage for. As simple as that. And a point like leadership, which has morally been prevalent in the vicinity of everything so far, and such is a decent standpoint that helps teach the probability of new births. And this point, I'm talking about leaders, for instance, philosophers, despite the growth cycle of their endlessly universal issues, which tackle a profusion of deals on account of humanity, and as profound as it is for the approach of leadership in relevance to the realm of triumphs and goals, whether appreciated or not, the rhetorical dictum of each time, as of every era and particular zeitgeist, is the uncertain non sequitur riddles that man has so far assessed in attaining a clear maintenance over functioning it all properly. And as you can tell, philosophers have a major role into doing and building this path of dilettantism and making it happen. Or I should say, despite the efforts and obstacles, there's also the mental obstacle, which tells a lot about one's struggle into the take of life. And perceiving changes and not being able to change them due to whatever that's holding you hostage, that is just extra effort on top of other more efforts. And although dreamy perspective are difficulties themselves, that's how they're considered, they could also be funny, as long as becoming a leader in such a twisted time is just a marketing decision after all. And for that, originality is dying and foundations are losing grounds and attitudes. It's just a disaster for the part that has no sense of respect for being original and authentic whatsoever. And mostly painful is that comprehending reality pretty much wrong, no need for its cost of dramatic events, as such affliction or suffering leads to the imbalance of direction of everything. Eventually, you ain't no expert analyzing the least of your problems ahead of you just by taking into consideration discords and conflicts and uncreative handlings too seriously. It's just an empty out-of-life experiment to be concerned with. Petulant, childish, and unprofessional ways of understanding life, at least philosophically. And as for the aftermath of the repercussions of constant endeavors, one would wind up in, for example, either stranded inside the exhibitions of life's best examples, hardships, engorged every time and empowered by superordinary people like everybody else, created equal, kind of beautifully different, and do cherish the similarity in a universal way. Those repercussions are to be accommodated to facilitate the visionaries in settling their motions, time and straight. Each recurring is a bless. To every type of an individual it is, with no limitations or restrictions, and those repercussions of following a dream and thus a goal is a major stepping stone for becoming the person we wish to be, back at our very first initiations of one's young mindset, upon stakes, traditions, and fundamental principles that have vowed not to change, as corresponded as the simple fact of living throughout the cycle of life. A momentum of picturing life as it is, austere, exciting, excruciating, and irritatingly too perfect to be alive. Yet better still, apprehending such sequel of likeness with still the chance of declining the vow of change sometime during the cycle of life, from appalling to extremely too perfect to be fitting to humanity. Though the rhetorical chapter in such a breathtaking realization to life, generally speaking, is just too behemoth for a face to recognize. Though in real dreams that summon oddity and weirdness in a second, it just can't be, despite the brilliance, malice, and even the drab God-given potentials as they fail us human beings, into realizing what to do sometimes. And this is a huge riddle to figure. So, vivid imaginations, their limits of all sorts, they could never define the ultimate ideals of letting go of life on account of washed-up dreams, for example. And still no one would dare to bend the idea of life over unsettled dreams in the form of a worthlessly meaningless chapter to live in the first place. You just have to, and we, everybody in the world, should just hang on to the idea of achieving what we were born to accomplish with those standards. And by standards, I mean the very key words I've been saying repeatedly: mindset, standpoint, dilettantism, or being an amateur, like I've been chanting here all along, as all of these terms are practically mingled to philosophy, just universally adequate to the vantage point where it starts making sense, like I said before. So when your mind addresses these things I've been rendering and urging its readership right here before you in this article, your mind gets to you badly and won't let you live peacefully at all, unless you try harder and be a certain dilettante, possibly a polymath, or you just have to disembark upon nothingness of reveries unsolved and dreams unrealized. Alright folks, this is pretty much to wrap up the Leadership and Dilettantism in Philosophy Part 1. Till next time, this interestingly subject, it just happened to have Part 2. So get ready and join us with your ideas, English language fanatics, with the philosophical calibers concerning your very opinion in general. And this very little piece of originality of mine on the leadership and dilettantism in philosophy, which I wrote for the moment. I welcome all your comments and that of crazy ones too. Subscribe to the channel, make sure you hit thumbs up, like it, share it, for more madness and craziness are coming on the way. And on your way they're coming. For these originality articles are to be examined, explained, expounded, and even more. Have a good and goodbye.